Thank you very much. We are starting in shortly in about 5 minutes. We'll start because we are scheduled to start at 6:30. For those who are just joining, please write in the chat box, yes, if you can hear me. I hope you can, because we are starting in 3 minutes. Bayo, are you ready? I can unmute you. You can unmute yourself, Bayo.
Yeah, I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
You, we are starting in about a minute. Let's see if you could put up the presentation.
Yeah, do that in a minute.
Oh,
Can you see?
not yet. We saw it some minutes ago.
It should be up now. So. Let me know if you can.
No, not yet. Have you shared
I
it?
have, yes.
Can't see it.
Can you see it?
No, not yet. It was on. It was on the screen. We could see it, but then it disappeared.
Okay. Right. So, give me a second. All right. So give me a minute. So,
Okay. In the meantime, I'll start the meeting. Welcome to everybody to this fifth webinar of the OSH webinar series presented by OSH Pro Services. I don't know if some of you had attended our earlier webinars, but we have we invite guests who talk about different topics, and today we have invited Bayo Awosanya, who is a certified occupational hygienist, and he's a project advisor working with a Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, and he is also a trustee of the Workplace Health Without Borders. Maybe some of you know about this organization. Bayo is going to talk about occupational hygiene and decision making in OSH management. So this is a very important topic, because we as safety officers or safety professionals have to make some decisions in our work on daily basis, and we have to have some supporting elements that support our decisions. So this is what we're going to talk about today, and I hope we'll learn something. What we will do is, if you have any questions, please, we'll take all the questions at the end of the presentation. So we'll listen to the presentation first, and when the presentation is done, then we'll take the questions. So you can put your questions in the chat box, and we'll take one and one after the presentation. Bayo visited us in Kenya last November during the OSH conference, where he presented the Workplace Health Without Borders, where a number of people registered, but that is a topic for another day. Today, Bayo, I give you the word, and please enlighten us. Unmute yourself and.
Yeah. Now I'm on mute now.
Yeah.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, depending on where you're logging on from across the continent.
We don't see the presentation, Bayo.
Okay, in a minute. Okay. You should see this presentation now, and I hope you can hear me and also can see the presentation. Let me know when you can see it.
We can see it now. Thank you.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Abdul Kadir, for this opportunity. And thank you also, Imran, for setting this up administratively. And I'd like to welcome you, my colleagues. I'm sitting in Nigeria at the moment. It's 4:35 in the evening here. So it's a very good privilege to be in your midst this evening. to discuss a very essential topic indeed, essential occupational hygiene factors that supports decision-making in occupational safety and health management. I'll quickly just go through the outline of today's discussion on your screen. I'm going to start by just giving you an overview of occupational hygiene definition, and then quickly we discuss very quick concept of occupational safety and health as it relates to the workplace and also occupational hygiene. Then I'll mention a little bit about what we need to do on culture change as occupational health and safety professional. Then we all know there is a breach that needs to be covered, like a gap between occupational hygiene and also occupational health and safety management. This is very important in the way we support our organization in the decision we make in occupational health and safety management. So under this decision-making model, I'll briefly tell you how you need to identify the OHS hazards and risks, which underpin your decision-making and also decision-making of our leaders. And where the problems are, how do you structure the problems? Wherever you have a problem, there is always a solution. So, and how do you look for solution to the problems? And we're going to go into the act of making decisions. Then after you have made that decision, what is next? You're going to have to implement the decision you make, you monitor it, and also feedback is also very, 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 very important. So let me go straight to occupational hygiene. So I'm going to start by laying some foundation about occupational hygiene. And this, of course, will give you an understanding of the basis and also the involvement of occupational hygienists in the way we evaluate risk factors in the workplace. And this significantly, of course, contribute to our decision-making in occupational health and safety, very importantly. So what's occupational hygiene? Is the science of anticipation, recognition, and also evaluation of workplace hazards and risks and how it is controlled. Anticipation, what is it? It's important stage where when you start to think of what can go wrong, what can release into the environment, and this helps you to start thinking of what you need to do to incorporate stuff in the design of everything in the workplace. New project, stages of your processes, plant modification, what type of controls you need to put in place to control such releases, which may affect human, affect the environment. And at this stage, you start to work with your engineers, your management, quality control professionals to address the problems. So the recognition bit, what is it? It's the aspect of the identification of possible hazards. What are those hazards? Chemical, gases, vapor, liquid, dust, mist, fumes. Then the physical part of the hazards, you're talking about noise, vibration, heat, cold, lighting, radiation, ionizing radiation, non-ionizing radiation. Then talking about the biological agents, this refers to bacteria, viruses, fungi, mites, and even COVID-19 falls under the category. Ergonomic factors, lifting, stretching, repetitive movements, pulling, pushing, all parts of ergonomic factors that you're faced with in the workplace on a daily basis. Finally, under recognition, psychosocial hazards and other health factors, a shift work, a crew change, stuff like that can affect human, causing them fatigue. Then the evaluation bit is the monitoring and analysis based on risk assessment. How do you interpret what you get against standards and reporting? Very, very key. The control bit, how do you eliminate risk factors? How do you substitute? How do you apply engineering controls? How do you put in place administrative factors? How do you put in place PPE programs, education and training, maintenance. I mean, this is occupational hygiene in a nutshell. It's a very big discipline, but for now, that sets the foundation for what you need to know before you can start to think of making decisions. So the link between occupational hygiene and occupational health and safety, it's just showing us some conceptual approach between occupational hygiene and also the occupational health and safety. What's it about? I'd like to mention that this concept framework is actually modeled by an Australian occupational health and safety body. So what does it say? What does it mean? Very diagrammatic, as you can see on your screen. Work impacts on the safety and health of humans who work in the environment, who work in the organizations, and the organizations are influenced by what I refer to as socio-political context. The organizations may be considered as a system which may contain hazards, which must be under control to minimize risks. And this, how do you achieve this? You can achieve this by understanding the risk itself for the safety and for the health of people, which results in improvement in the safety and health of people at work. As OHS professional, we need to apply our professional practice to influence not just the organization, but the leadership and the management. Why do you need to do that? For improvement purpose. So because they're decision makers, our managers, the workers themselves, as well as occupational health and safety professionals like ourselves, we need to understand the essential role that occupational hygienists play in the protection of workers' health and of the environment. Not just that, as well as the need for specialized professionals in this field. So there's a close link between occupational and environmental health. So the link should be kept in mind, very important, because the prevention of pollution from industrial sources through the adequate handling and disposal of hazardous effluents and waste should be started at the workplace level. That's where it starts. So for us as occupational health and safety professional, what do we need to do? We need this culture change, not just a culture change. We also need what I would call a learner's mindset. So for culture change, I mean our ability to influence and change the norm. And learner's mindsets, I mean, we continue to grow as individuals, just like we put ourselves in a situation that, sorry, I don't know everything. And so every step you take as a professional, when you're providing professional advice, is just an opportunity for you to learn new things. And also for you to collaborate with the business, when I mean the business, the organization where you work, or the body you provide consultancy service for, or whatever service you provide for anyone where you find yourself. So it's very important for you to demonstrate what I refer to as a positive and the mindset of an optimist. That's very important. So when you have that mindset, then and you apply the concept of the relationship between occupational hygienists and an occupational health professional, whether you are an hygienist already or not. Important thing is, if you change the mindset of people, then you impact the organization, then you prevent accident, you prevent injury, because people begin to apply what I refer to as human performance approach in the things they do. We all make mistakes. So, but it is important when we make mistakes, we own up to the mistakes at work. That is the only way we can learn as individual, as a professional, and even where we work. So, but talking about the culture mindset and also the learner's mindset, let me quickly just share a very common riddle with you all. Here, what do you see? What you have on your screen. So maybe you want to type in the chat box, what do you see, in a couple of seconds? Just type in, what do you see? I believe Abdul Qadir is helping me to track.
Yes, I'm following up the chart. I'm following up the chart.
So just tell me, what do you see? What do you see?
Glass
I like
and
to
water.
have at least about 75%.
Glass and water.
Glass of, what else? Tell me, what do you see?
Glass and water in the space.
Okay. Anything else? Just tell me, what do you see?
Yeah, I'll
see
glass and water again. Glass and water.
Glass and water. That's fine. I mean, it's about perception. It's about what your mind tells you. It's about the mindset you have about things. So if I go to the next screen, some people will tell you, I see a glass of water half empty. Others will tell you, I see a glass of water half full. So really depends on what you see. So a pessimist will say that the glass is half empty. An optimist will tell you the glass is half full. But let me tell you, while you're busy arguing over it, I've taken it and I've drank the water. I've drank the water. So it's about a culture change. As professional, what's our role? Our role includes supporting in changing the culture in the work environment. Our role involves solving workplace problems, acting as strategic thinkers, and working with our managers to provide them with the solutions they need to their problems. They've got problems, and we need to bridge the gap which may exist in the workplace. And as you know, what's the problem? It's a perceived gap between expectations versus reality. So what's the expectation of our managers, and what is the reality? What are those gaps? The gaps, where do they lie? It lies in the relationship between our ability to determine what are those hazards in the workplace, how do we identify those hazards, how do we prefer solutions to the workplace risk, and how do we integrate the solution into decision making and also into the occupational health and safety systems. Sometimes you may not have the expertise, but you must have that collaboration to do or to demonstrate your vulnerability, like I mentioned earlier on. Vulnerability in the sense that you should be vulnerable, I don't know it, or I need support, or I need to get a consultant to come and provide me with this solution. So if the issue is occupational hygiene related, then you can get an occupational hygienist. And if you have occupational hygiene background, then you begin to identify not just the safety aspect of what the problems are in the workplace, but the occupational hygiene factors. So how do we bridge the gap? I'm going into the crux of the matter. The first thing we need to do is identify the problem, structure the problem. You look for possible solution, we make the decision, we implement, we monitor those decisions, and we give feedback for continuous improvement. So how do you identify those occupational health and safety hazards? Primarily, what you need to do is you've got business objectives in your company where you work, or wherever company you're providing services to. So you must have the ability to extract what the occupational hygiene hazards can be within that business objectives. Then there is a gap. The gap can be in monitoring the hazards, looking at the problem in terms of what are the goals and barriers that can offer you an effective way of defining the problem. The simple way is monitoring the workplace for those hazards. You want to monitor for noise, You want to monitor for chemicals. You want to monitor for ergonomic hazards. So those are the gaps that exist in the body of knowledge and in the body of practice. And the only way you can do that is to have the ability to identify them. So when you have big problems, divide them into smaller problems. You have a very big plant. You can look for the high-level hazards, monitor the high-level hazards, then start going into what can be the sub-problems under the main problems. Sometimes it will become apparent that what seems to be a single problem is more of multi-problems. For example, you might want to monitor for noise in an environment. Then the interference between the noise levels from the plant and maybe a motorway beside the plant can be an interference. That's a multi-problem. The noise from the plant, the noise from the motorway. So it's your ability to identify where the interferences are that can help you to begin to think of what the solution can be. So that's about identifying it. So I'll go to the next one very briefly. Now, when you've been able to identify the problem, how do you structure and document the problem? This is where the role of risk assessment comes into place. As a safety professional, I know you do risk assessment on a daily basis. However, if you apply occupational hygiene into your risk assessment, then you start to think about the risk assessments which relates to humans, not just the environment, which is what you call the health risk assessment. You document it, understanding of the hazards and the exposure, which gives you the risk. Then structuring the problem is about getting a lot of more information about the problem and also increasing your understanding. Now, it's very important that at this stage, you must identify those factors that influence the assessment of the risk and also discuss the problem associated with possible decision-making when you find yourself in meetings. Then what are those workplace-based risk assessment that you must be looking at? What are those factors? The consequence of the hazard, the likelihood, then combining the likelihood and the consequence, of course, which gives you the risk. Then sometimes the risk can have multiple possible values and multiple types of consequence, but you should have a good understanding of your risk assessment matrix. That helps you to come up with what you will refer to as a risk profile. So once you have a risk profile, then you document it. I'll go to the next one. So you've been able to identify the problem. You've been able to assess it. So how do you create the solution? This is where expertise comes into place. I mentioned earlier on that just if you don't have occupational hygiene competence, of course, you can seek support. I'll give you an example of some solutions that you can start to look at. And those are the ones you can actually see on the screen. You might have the competence or you might seek the expertise in assessing a chair when you're about to purchase office chairs, for example. So it is an occupational hygienist who would do that assessment in some places where you don't have ergonomists. Then the outcome of that assessment, it helps decision-making in the type of office chair that you need to supply to the workforce when you're trying to prevent musculoskeletal problems. And the way you collect data as well of crew changes, people going into the field for 28 days or for 2 weeks and coming back to their home to rest before going back to work. The data is very key as an hygienist or as an occupational health professional and safety professional. in the decision our management make in managing fatigue. As an occupational health and safety professional as well, the advice on specification for RPE program is just one of them. You get involved. Then monitoring of noise levels for hearing conservation program is also an occupational hygiene factor which underpin the decision made for a hearing conservation program. Then the way you assess chemical exposure, either through direct monitoring or through an active monitoring in terms of occupational hygiene monitoring, also underpins the selection of personal protective equipment, clothing, or respirators, or other PPEs. So there are a lot of solutions you can actually create around your workplace. But important thing is to ensure that you understand the basis of the occupational hygiene factors, which actually will help you to bridge the solution you're looking for under a proper health and safety system. So how do you make the decisions? I'd like you to know that decisions are made at different levels in an organization, hierarchy. And this may range from how they set the goal and targets for the entire business in order to manage the day-to-day activity. There are 4 types of decision making hierarchy that relates to us as occupational health and safety professional. And this side actually, they're risk-related decisions, and it's of interest: strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency. At strategic level, these kind of decisions are made by our managers, and they have the greatest potential to satisfy the responsibilities placed on them by the statutes of their position. And this makes significant contribution towards the prevention of injury or ill health in the workplace. They talk about tactical. This is also made at higher levels of management and major choices of action which influence the whole or a major part of the organization. And this also contributes directly to the achievement of organizational goals and have long-term implications. It has long-term implications. The operational, before I go to the operational, well, the tactical decisions usually taken by us, professionals, and our specialists as well, and also the middle management, and also our specialist engineers. This can have short or medium-term impact, like I mentioned earlier on. But it's very important that we know that when such tactical decisions are made, this is what we need to operationalize. So that takes us to the operational decisions. And these are the day-to-day decisions you make as occupational health and safety professional. So taking us back to what I mentioned earlier on in terms of vulnerability, there are some day-to-day decisions you make while you're working. It's important for you to realize that you do not know everything. So it's important for you to still go back to your manuals, to your procedures, to your JHA, to your one-pager, a toolbox talk, to go and check again if you're making the right decision. And based on the data available to you and based on the occupational risks that you've identified. So contingency decisions. This is type of decision you make under emergency situation, like COVID-19, for example. I'll give you a very typical example. The kind of contingency decision you make. Perhaps you're responsible for only your employees, but in a contingency situation dealing with COVID-19, what your main goal is to prevent illness or go zero. You do not want any incident in your facility. So whether your employees are working for you only or you have contractors as well, you want to put in place some kind of decisions that will help you carry everybody along and deal with them as if they are all your employees. But this kind of decision, definitely, it's at very high level, but it requires the support of occupational health and safety professionals to support this top management decision. But while you're making this decision, it's important to carefully look at the solutions. Look at the solutions all the time. The solutions are usually around you, but when you talk to people, you will understand that the solution you're looking for is just right in your neighborhood. Then whenever you make decisions as well, always categorize the decisions in terms of hierarchy of controls, because the aim is for you to control the risks in your workplace. That's very important. Then when you make the decision as well, it's good to demonstrate a lab. A lab is as low as reasonably practicable. You're looking at the time it will take you to make that decision. You're looking at what it will cost you to make the decision, and you're weighing that against the risk. Then when you make those decisions, watch for the danger. Sometimes if you make the decision too quickly, you may get it wrong. If you make the decision too late, you may get it wrong. Very typical example now, in some countries, people believe that their governments have taken too late decision to manage COVID-19. So our management and leaders are faced with a lot and lots of pressure when they make the decision. But when they have fit for purpose and also suitable professionals around them, it's very important for you to provide them with the right level of support so that when they make the decision, because you have a good understanding of the risk, they are able to make the right decisions. Then also, potential loss of opportunity. You need to target the right time to make the right decision. That's about decision making. Now, when you make the decision, it's important for you to track the decision as you implement. Then finally, it's a process in occupational hygiene that when you put control in place, you can never control all hazards. So some is going to fall through the crack, like the cheese model. Then when that happens, it's important for you to have what we refer to as remedial action plan in place to manage emergencies. So your remedial action plan in place can be a standby establishment that can help you to manage any residual risk that you are unable to manage based on the decisions you have made. So I've managed to cover all the 5 aspects, and this is just the end of my presentation, so we can have a small conversation before we all run away. This presentation is given also not just on behalf of myself, but importantly, I am a trustee of the Workplace Health Without Borders, and this is who we are. We're not profit international organization with our registered charity in Canada. You can see our website on the screen, and also our email in case you need to contact us. So thank you very much, and I'll pause here for questions and deliberation.
Thank you, Bayo, for that concise presentation on decision making. Decision making is one of the things which is always difficult, because you make a decision and somebody else life or safety depends on that decision, and the company's progression depends on that decision. So it's always you're always on the tightrope. You have to balance what you say to the management, what decision you present to the management, because that decision will affect many people. So For me, who works with the inspectorate, it's much maybe things are much easier because it's more one direction. You look at what is done and make judgment of what other people have done. But those who are making those solutions and implement them, they are the ones who have the biggest challenge. So if you have any questions to Bayo or comment, then you can write it in the chat. If you prefer to speak, I can unmute you so that you present your question. But you can as well write the question in the chat box, and I will read the questions. One thing which came to my mind while you are talking, Bayo, maybe you can start with that, is as a professional, you do your best to get the best solutions, but the best solutions are not always welcomed by the management. And before they put their signature, they will send you back several times, maybe change this, adjust this, because this is costly, this is, we need a more sustainable solution. How do you deal with such situations where you have difficult managers, if I can say that? You are muted, Bayo.
Yeah. Now on mute. I was muted automatically. Yeah, it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma, especially when you work with engineers, and also when you work with a management. If you're in a middle management cadre in an organization, you will appreciate that you face this dilemma every day. I had a situation recently where I was trying to make a decision to some leaders, where they informed me, because they know a framework very well, and they said, sorry, the framework did not say that they must produce a particular register, and the register is a hazards register which must be produced for a project. So what you do in such cases is to always tie your decision, your advice to regulation. So if your regulation, for example, says it must be done, then you need to demonstrate an ability to influence them. So you must also be able to wear a cap of what do I call it? A partner, kind of, because they see occupational health and safety professionals as police. So you must never wear a police cap when you're trying to influence your leaders. You must wear the cap of a business partner. So when they see you as a business partner, you're able to influence them to do what you're advising based on a certain framework, and also always refer them back to the regulations. When they know that the regulation says they must do it, then it is possible that likely that they will do it. It may not be easy, they may not do it the first time, but without you being persistent, but just making sure that you use your stakeholder engagement skills and your business partnering skills, not your police skill. If you're able to apply those skills to do what you want.
So in short, be the safety professional and not be a police. There's a comment here. Thanks, Bayo. Decision making is a process. I'm impressed with the statement on the risk posed by delay in decision making. Quite impressed. That's from Mr. Chris Otieno. And there's a question. How do you demonstrate your decision as a worthy business direction to promote its prioritization and implementation if it's not statutory? You are muted again, Bayo.
Yeah, automatic muting. Right. So if it's not regulatory, all the time we always learn from incidents. So as an occupational health and safety professional, what you should try and do when you believe strongly that it will be a best practice to actually carry out a risk assessment. And especially if a risk assessment is a major, the risk assessment is based on carrying out an assessment on a major hazard. If you're doing lifting and hoisting, for example, if you're doing a piling in a construction site, the major hazards that you should keep your eyes on, you may not get most of them in your regulatory register, but because it had caused accident before, or you've shared an incident, a learning from an incident with them, and you know that this is a big issue, then based on that, you can go back with evidence to say, yes, it may not be in the regulatory register, but this is a major hazard. And I believe if we learn from incidents, then you will benefit from it. If you let them see the benefits in the decision you're trying to make, evidence-based, it's likely that they will go with that.
There's a follow-up to that. How do you wear a business partner cap without compromising safety when many times it's about profit and minimizing non-operational costs?
Yeah, you be the friends of the project. You be the friend of the business. You're not always sitting in your office. You're always with them. As a business partner, you see each yourself and the business you're working with as planning to achieve the same goal. You let them see that, yes, you're working towards the same goal, but you're only a safety officer because you want to ensure that they conduct their business and they carry out the operations without harm to people, without harm to the environment, without harm to the surrounding. Once they see you as demonstrating value to them, then that's when you can have that business partnering ability. But it should never be seen as always telling them they're not compliant. If you show up to a business as a compliance officer, there's every chance that they will always push back. But when they see you as partner with them, like you both have stakeholders in the operations, they begin to have confidence in you. They start to have trust in you. So whatever you tell them, they know that you are there not to stop their show, but to help them to achieve what they set out to achieve. So that's how you can actually wear the business partnering hat as a stakeholder.
Wanted a little bit more on not compromising safety, because when you're wearing that cap, there is that risk that you can compromise safety. Because wearing the cap is one thing, but if you wear it and it ends up compromising the safety of the workers, then something is not correct.
Yeah, if you ever compromise safety while you're wearing a business partnering hat, if you compromise once, they will never trust you. So while you wear the hat, it's very important for you to build trust in the business and in the people you're working with and you're working together. If you wear your business partnering hat, at the same time you're helping them to comply, not forcing them to comply. It's a difference between compliance under duress or compliance under influence. So you should have the ability to influence their compliance, not to force their compliance. The only way you can change you can make them to comply is to ensure the system is in place that fosters the compliance, not putting a system in place that forces the compliance. So, and you can achieve that by making sure that simple things, you're always in the same meeting with the project team. You're always in the same meeting with the operations team. You understand fully what they're doing. So anytime they talk, you put a voice into what they're discussing, then they see you as a friend. So when you advise that, I would like you to please carry out these operations that way, because that is the benefit. And the only way you can carry out this operation safely is to put in place 1, 2, 3. It will involve a workshop. I can even help you to set up the workshop. I'll ensure that all the stakeholders are present. I'll drive the workshop. They see you as very cooperative. So when you ask them to do things, you're not compromising safety. You're putting in place safety measures to ensure that you achieve goal zero. When I mean goal zero, you're achieving good operations without an incident.
Yes, there's another comment to the question. Thanks, Bayo. I'm impressed with the entire presentation. And just to mention, the aspect of implementation of the decisions, tracking the progress and seeking feedback, in most cases, the feedback aspect is not fully followed up, since there is a high likelihood of the decision negatively affecting the end user, such as the worker. How well can this be avoided?
Right. Well, feedback is a continuous thing. Now, most times when we put in place implementation actions and tracking in place, it is always possible that people put them in place. It's like a tick box, and they move away. But it's also very important to have their commitment right from the start of a process. And if you make them understand what the process is going to be like from start to finish, an end-to-end operation, an end-to-end approach, then there is likelihood that by the time you get to the implementation and the tracking stage, then they know that feedback is actually part of the process, but not a tick box. Then if the feedback mechanism is robust, then you're likely to achieve results. It is important that the feedback is fed back into the entire loop, such that if you have a feedback, it helps you to improve the start of the process rather than a feedback that cannot be tracked. Finally, in terms of monitoring feedback and also making sure feedbacks are powerful, the feedbacks should be such actions that can be tied to person and also be smart in terms of having a time to close it, and also seeking management support from the beginning before you even get to the feedback stage for provision of resources and support, such that when you have a feedback that is financially inclined, then you already have your management support to provide you with the resources to make sure the feedback comes into life and the feedback is acted upon.
I saw a hand raised by Esther Mutuku, but I can't find you on the list anymore. So if Esther, you can hear me, then please let me know. Are there any other questions or comments to what Bayo has just explained to us? It's interesting that you mentioned in response to the question about what to do when it's not statutory. We have our next webinar will be exactly on that topic, where we've invited the Deputy Director of DOSH and Director of National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health Services, Dr. Andrew Muruka. Many of you maybe know him or at least have heard about him. And we asked him to come and talk about exactly that. If compliance with regulation is that's all what is needed, or we need a little bit more, because this is a discussion which happens again and again. If somebody fulfills the regulations and he does what the regulation is asking, is that enough to fulfill the safety requirements of the workers and in decision making? So we hope that Dr. Andrew Muruka will come and discuss with us and have a discourse on the role and significance of regulatory compliance in promotion of workers' occupational safety and health. This will be very interesting, and it will be, in a way, a follow-up of what we've just had. This will be the next webinar number 5, that will take place on 17th of August. The same time, same place. So you get you've just got a heads up on what's coming in the next webinar that will be building on exactly that part of fulfilling regulations. If you comply with the regulations, is it enough? Is that what you're required to do as a safety officer, just to make sure that you comply with regulations, or is there more you have to do? This would be interesting to hear it from the regulators himself, actually the second topmost regulator in the country. Are there any other questions, comments? I see no questions and no comments. People have just come from work, and I don't know if they are tired and need to go and take a break and maybe have some dinner and some time with family. So I would like to thank you, Bayo, very much for the presentation and for your willingness to take part in this webinar. I would like to thank all of the participants and all those who have attended. And we hope to see you again in the next webinar on the 17th, as I mentioned, on 17th of August, where we'll have Dr. Andrew Muruka from DOSH prepare good questions so that we put the director into task on whatever we want to know about compliance with the regulation and safety of workers at workplace. So thank you very much for all. Thank you for taking part, and bring a friend with you next time, so that we really put questions to the director. And there's a question: will the PowerPoints be shared for review? Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. This Bayo will send it to us, and in the same web page where you got the link to join in the meeting, or maybe some of you got it through emails or WhatsApp. But we'll put up the presentation together with the recording of the presentation. So you'll have a recording of the presentation, and the presentation itself. We'll all put it in our web page. So we'll hope and we'll send a message to you when this is done. So today is Monday. By tomorrow, Tuesday, it should be up, and we'll let you know about this. So thank you very much. If there are no further questions, then I will end up this meeting, unless if our brother Imran has anything to add. Imran? Imran, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think I have anything on my part. I think all that has to be said has already been said. Except I just want to say thanks to Bayo for taking the time.
Thank you, Imran.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone who joined us today. We hope to see you again next time. Okay, good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abdul. Thank you.
Have a nice evening, and take care.
Thanks everyone, and have a nice
see you next time.
See you next time. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.